Ancient Egypt is a timeline in history that has been shown in film for decades to captivate viewers. It is one of the most interesting parts in history with a phenomenal civilization. As time has gone on into the present times we live in now, we care to be on the more historically accurate side when it comes to depicting certain historical figures and time. Cleopatra of ancient Egypt has had her fair shares of screen time throughout Hollywood movies. So it was a no-brainer for Netflix to shoot their attempt at putting Cleopatra out there. The only issue is that this is supposed to be a documentary, and in today's social landscape in which we are supposed to rightfully depict history, Netflix, a network, a company worth billions of dollars, has failed to do so. Netflix has decided to cast a biracial black woman as Cleopatra in their part 2 of their docu-series looking at the African queen. And this hasn't set down well with a lot of Egyptian people and people that work in this historical field. If you already know, Cleopatra's race and ethnicity has been debated within historical circles for centuries and centuries, and is obviously something that we can't look at with a current racial scope. A common misconception about ancient Egypt is that it was one race or another race, but in reality it was a melting pot of different cultures, ethnicities, and race, and just in general. So there was a range of skin colors that people probably were at that time. But when it comes to Cleopatra, it has been widely kind of agreed on that she was of Macedonian Greek descent, being a direct descendant of a guy that was a bodyguard to Alexander the Great, which kind of gives you a representation of what she probably looked like. Probably a olive-skinned woman that has Middle Eastern features. It is even said by some historians that she might have only been a quarter Egyptian, but obviously this is something that is hard to even determine since her mother's identity is completely unknown. So yeah, despite there being statues and coins that show how Cleopatra did look like, which doesn't align with the person they casted, it's just interesting because in 2020 they accused the idea of Gal Gadot, or the woman that played Wonder Woman. She's Israeli, and they criticized the thought of casting her as Cleopatra because that would have been whitewashing, which in all reality is interesting because Cleopatra probably looked like her before looking like a actual black woman, because Israel is from that area in a way, and we're talking about Cleopatra, a woman that had Mediterranean and probably Middle Eastern looking characteristics. Tina Gurani, the show's director, went on to say that as a child, when she saw the Hollywood portrayal of Cleopatra being played by Elizabeth Taylor, it made her question the act if she really looked that way, which is fair, but I don't think blackwashing Cleopatra is the right rebuttal to this. And she went on to say that even though Cleopatra descended from Macedonian royalty, she was 8 generations removed from those ancestors that we know of, and she said that they were unlikely white. And this is just so dumb to me and so silly because she's trying to pull the unlikely card and trying to do this thing in which she appeals to historical accuracy, but you completely do the opposite, which doesn't align with history. And then she goes on to say that this was a political act, which is very flawed because you're not appealing to history, which makes you lose all credibility of this product just in general. And then she then goes on to say, why shouldn't Cleopatra be a melanated sister, and why do some people need Cleopatra to be white? Her proximity to whiteness seems to give her value, and for some Egyptians it seems to really matter. And this is just the dumbest closing to her reasoning, because she's just using TikTok SJW cope right now. Egyptians are gonna care because this is their history. This is somebody from their history. If you're falsely depicting and portraying her as something that she's not, people are going to be mad. Like, bro, nobody is saying that Cleopatra has to be this pasty white, blue-eyed person. They're just saying that, they're just criticizing that your portrayal also just failed. You're no different from the Europeans that are whitewashing Cleopatra. You're putting this identity politics, SJW, and mixing it with Afrocentrism to rewrite history in the way that you want to write it, which is just as bad. All of the criticisms that I've seen in this Forbes article have been on the dot, to say the least. This guy named Dr. Mustafa Waziri said that this is a falsification of Egyptian history and just filled with historical fallacies, which couldn't agree more. An Egyptian lawyer by the name of Mahmoud al-Samari, excuse me if I said that wrong, said that this is misrepresenting Egyptian identity and just promoting Afrocentric thinking. And a government-owned Egyptian broadcaster went on to say that they're going out of their way to produce their own series, which I think is good for them. There was also a petition that had 85,000 signatures to cancel the series, which, you know, it just makes me glad because people that are reasonable, there's a lot of reasonable people out there that think this is BS and bogus, which is great. I also forgot to mention that they only had like one Egyptian historian work on this throughout all, which is insane to me because this is something where I would assume you would have multiple people just checking off each other to make this the best product they could, and they just failed. On top of having Jada Pinkett Smith play a part in this as like a executive director, this product was just already planned to crash and burn from the start. All of this controversy has led to the lead actor playing Cleopatra getting unwarranted hate and racial remarks, which I don't agree with, and a abysmal Rotten Tomatoes rating of 20% and an audience rating of 3%. Feel free to give me y'all's thoughts. Like, dislike, comment, subscribe. There's more stuff I gotta check out, so I'm out. Peace.